Welcome to another edition of The Naked Truth. My name is John Singletary.
And my name is Ramon Roan.
Today we will be talking about the Hamburg Secret. Many people in South Carolina are unaware that Hamburg, South Carolina was once a place. It was once a place where there were home, loving people, and it exists no more. It was named after, by a gentleman who named it after where he grew up in Hamburg, Germany. But it's where we now call Aiken, South Carolina. Hamburg exists no more, basically due to racial incidents and political incidents surrounding voter suppression and the initiative to dilute the African American vote in South Carolina. There's a monument that still is left that has inscriptions on four sides that will make your eyes jump out of your head when you read what's on the inscription. There was several people that died, but of course the monument was only done for the white South Carolina citizen that ended up dying that day. And so when we look at Hamburg, we have to remember that there is an overriding initiative to systematically deny the right to vote, just like the municipal unbounding that we talked about earlier. And so we just have to stay cognizant of that fact.
Today, John and I were at lunch or breakfast, whatever it was, and we were, because I never heard of heard of other massacres, but not here in South Carolina. But what John was explaining to me, in South Carolina, they tend to hide, they want to hide all the atrocities that South Carolina did. But when we think about the systematic way of denying blacks to vote, it started right after 1870, when it was granted blacks to be able to have the right to vote. So when blacks were exercising their right to vote, and I would like to have to do a little bit more research on what was the percentage of blacks voting at that time when they had the right to vote, because when we were able to vote, we actually voted and voted.
Like the same as it is now.
Man, that's a shame. But now think about it, huh? Right, because at that time, because of the fact they were killing you, they were lynching you, what have you. So when we think about how long voter suppression has been going on, ever since we were given the right to vote, we had to face voter suppression. And the Hamburg massacre was about voter suppression of black people. And so here we are in South Carolina, to where we still have a voter suppression through a municipal underbounding, through annexation. We have through the Jim Crow laws, the grandfather clause, the literacy test. All of those were those are tools, devices to suppress the black vote, because they know that the blacks are not, that most blacks, I don't say all, most blacks going to vote in their best interest. What's in their best interest?
There's power in voting.
There's power in voting.
There's power in voting, and it is the power that's in the voting that allows you to then control the resources, the economic resources.
Mm-hmm.
When we're talking about advocating and protecting our citizens through information, education, economic empowerment, and action, what we're talking about is the fact that the economic empowerment through jobs, contracts, community resources, those things come because someone controls the vote that controls the power. It's almost like, we talked about today in a divorce situation. The attorneys scramble and fight for custody, not because they're so concerned with custody, but the money follows the child.
Right.
So whoever fights and gets the custody, then automatically the money follows.
Absolutely.
Whoever fights for the lion's share of the voting base, then the money follows that voting base if they vote in their best interest, because that's where the power is. So on the offensive move, what they do is they simply try and get more of them annexed in, able to vote, And on the defensive move, they try and do everything possible in order to deny the African American community and the right to vote and to dilute the whole community's vote. So it's an offensive move and a defensive move that's being played out at the same time.
Right. Now these many of these elections were local elections. They were local elections.
Sure.
I mean, they're putting in people that were, be it mayor, be it council, whatever. They're local elections. That's why it's so important for blacks to participate in our local election. I think that the statistic that I have for our local elections, that black participation is something like 12 to 15%, something like that. It's in the teens. And for a national election, it goes up to like 50-some-odd%.
Well, it's just the way politics is. You know, we have to get out and we have to vote in order to be able to be at the table when the decisions are made. You know, we often say that we hear the phrase that, you know, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And it's true. And so we have to get registered to vote and get to the table and exercise our vote, and then look for the ways that we are denied, wholesale the community that your vote is being denied or diluted, and address those things. Primarily municipal underbounding and the annexations.
I think that it's so important to understand the tools that are working against those that are black and those that are poor. And those two, when you recognize the tools and recognize the weapon, then you have an opportunity, or you're better informed to fight it. And so the voter suppression is so ingrained in our country. I'm not going to just say
it's systematic.
It's
no,
systematic,
it's not just
right?
South Carolina, it's
because
systematic.
You're talking about generations upon generation. I don't know how many times, John, that I've heard that your vote don't count. Your vote don't count. No, but you didn't think about this now. You tell us over and over, you're hearing it, your vote don't count, your vote don't count. And then so people say that, well, I'm not going to vote because my vote don't count.
And we have to be mindful of the fact that not only does the vote count, but we need to stop saying you need to vote. I don't care who you vote for, just vote. That's crazy. That's ludicrous.
Yeah.
You need to vote in the best interests of your community, because if you go and vote for the opposing side, you have hurt yourself. We talked earlier, I mean, it's like, you know, when you watch kids playing basketball, if you say, I don't care which goal you shoot, and just shoot, and they go and shoot at the wrong end of the basketball goal, then you've given the other side points. You don't go to war, and this is a war in case you didn't know, you don't go to war and give someone a gun who's new and say, listen, I don't care who you shoot, just shoot somebody. And they're behind you. Yeah. Absolutely not. Yeah. You don't do that.
Just shoot.
Yeah, you can't have that.
No, you can't.
What we need you to do is we need you to be informed and take your vote and vote properly. Vote for the best interests of your community, which then increases your opportunity for good jobs and good contracts.
I suggest that you guys look up the Hamburg massacre. I believe the number I got was over 100 people that were blacks that were killed in that Hamburg massacre. But it's not
one white, and the monument goes up for
yeah, right. Yeah,
the one white.
The one white,
and the state paid for it.
Yeah, sure enough. Yeah, and talked about he was fighting for the Anglo-Saxon. Something like for the Anglo-Saxon. I'm like, wow, he wanted to keep that heritage, and so. But that's what we deal with, and you're right.
Well, our judicial system used to be called the Anglo-Saxon judicial system.
Yeah, sure enough. But yeah, the country we live in, you would not believe it until you see it for yourself.
Absolutely right. And some of the terminology that they use, like, you know, when you find out what the original name for the 1983 action in court was.
Right. Wow. Well, John.
It was the KKK Act. That's what they call it. That's what Congress called it, the Ku Klux Klan Act.
Wow. Well, Again, please study our history, and the history that we get in our schools and our education system is not the truth.
No, it's
But I thank God for that we have the internet, and we have books that are written about these events, so we're being better informed, and that we can share that with our loved ones, especially our children. Our children need to know that they did not, we weren't just slaves in this country, but we were inventors. We contributed mightily to this country and even to the society and to the world population we have created. Many inventions are contributed to people of African descent.
because we were enslaved.
That's right.
We weren't born
We
slaves.
weren't born slave. That's right. I like one doctor said, it was an educator. He said that don't call them slaves. Don't call them. You were enslaved, but he said he used your prisoners of war. I like that term.
That's what it was.
The other one, prisoner of war. Well, John, anything else?
Nothing else. I think that takes care of it.
We appreciate you listening. This has been another edition of The Naked Truth.